Victoria, you know, uh, women are powerful, amazing, but sometimes they just don't believe it. Why do you think that happens? And what can we do about it to let women know you rock? You can do anything you want, nothing holds you back.
Well, I think that one of the biggest things holding women back is this unbelievably subconscious need to be liked and
Yes.
to put everyone else first. And I feel like that natural instinct that we have really holds us back in business. So many women that are in my community and women that I mentor really struggle with this idea of, how do I show up strong as a strong leader that is results oriented, right? But still be kind and still, show up in a way that feels very natural to me. I think, I personally have struggled so much with this, and I see a lot of women struggling in the same way. And the way that you can really move past this, in my opinion, is really because it doesn't come naturally, right? It may not come naturally to
Mhm.
many men as well. And whenever we're in this position where we want to improve, we have to start getting really curious, right? About why we are feeling the ways that we feel, and get coaches or get some help or read some great books to figure out some strategies, some leadership strategies that can really move you through it. Because the only way we're going to move through it is if we sort of approach it actively, proactively.
Absolutely. In a minute, I'm going to share with you how I think we can fix that.
Mhm.
The No Limit Selling Podcast, where mindset meets sales and leadership. Victoria, one of the things I really think is that there is an authentic version of you. There's an authentic version of me. And part of the journey of being a strong leader is very much understanding who we are. And once we have that foundation, that allows us to step into our power in a way that other people go, I get that. And when you build that trust up through that authenticity is where you can be that leader without having to, I hope they like me, I hope they don't judge me. All that disappears on both sides of the equation. And I think that's the answer. The answer to leadership externally is to master the internal.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
absolutely. Well, I think that marketing is kind of a funny bird when it comes to this idea of authenticity, because a lot of people, especially women, marketing ourselves and our businesses, selling ourselves or our businesses, um, may feel very in contra, like a little bit in contrast to what that authentic self wants. Because
Mm,
maybe we're a little bit shy, maybe we feel a little bit embarrassed to put ourselves out there or to really push our businesses. Maybe it doesn't feel natural. But to your point, I think the authenticity that we need to connect with is really what are our goals and our dreams, not focusing on the means to get there. I talk with women every day that are kind of feel is very shy or unnatural to show up online, right? To show up on social media. But the reality is regardless of if you have a product-based business or service-based business, we live in this world where people want to know the story behind the brand, the founder story. People want
right.
to connect with people, and people want to buy from people. And so when we talk about stepping into our power, oftentimes it's not because we need to show up in this very kind of like gregarious, outgoing, intense, like we need to shed all of our shyness, right? It's
Right.
more about, we're going to be more focused on where we want to go, the destination. And it doesn't matter what the means to get there is, because you're so tuned in to what your desires are, what your goals and dreams are, that you find that power to do whatever it takes, whether that means putting yourself out there or making sure you have sales messaging going out and or investing in yourself, for example.
Brilliant. So you have a lot of women coming to you that are founders that are looking to do better. Tell us one of their stories. Who came in? You can change the name to protect the innocent, but just very much, what this woman was thinking and how you helped her gonna see a better vision and actually step into her power.
So I'll give you an example of a company that I worked with, and I'm sure they would not mind if I shared. Elevate Leadership. So Elevate
Mm,
Leadership had two women at the helm, brilliant, brilliant women at the helm of that business. They still are at the helm of the business. And actually, their business model is leadership, like corporate leadership management training.
mm,
And when they came back, one is, got educated at Oxford. The other one came from, car industry SVP of sales. Um, and when they started their business, I think the one of the main things that we worked on together was really how can we kind of reposition, because both of them were not so much in this idea of like, let's put ourselves out there in front, right?
right.
Let's not really, the product will speak for itself, all of that. But what we found as we started really leaning into the marketing growth strategy that I developed for them is that, business, even B2B business, can feel very personal. And so it is really important to kind of shift your perspective. And, for them, LinkedIn was really a spot where them being visible was going to make a huge difference. And it did. Because what we understand about marketing growth strategies is, when you're putting your, what I call your 24/7 marketing flywheel, which is, all of the pieces of the marketing puzzle fitting
Right.
together nicely, right? And everything that you do for marketing, it has really this layered effect. But when we get into this nurture phase, so it's called, right? The phase in which we're really developing the relationship with our clients, which, by the way, it doesn't matter if it's B2B or B2C, it doesn't matter if you're product or service. Every business must go through this phase of nurturing, right? Where we're adding value, we're
Right.
building the like factor, we're getting prospects ready to buy with us. And the leaders of this company, Lucy and Lindsay, in the first stages really didn't, they knew instinctually, yes, we need to be on LinkedIn. But then the next question is well, what are we sharing on LinkedIn, right?
Mm,
And regardless of the social media platform you're on, personal stories are incredibly effective. And if you follow Elevate Leadership, which everyone should, because they're incredible example of what I'm talking about here, you know, they had discovered, the more vulnerable, the more real, the more authentic that they are. Which again, coming not from this world of entrepreneurship, so to speak, right? But the more vulnerable, the more open they were and candid with their stories, their own personal journeys, you could see the effects, right? And when you look at all of the tactics for marketing that are working in concert, yes,
right.
you can be sharing organic, content on social media that's going to connect with our audience. But when we layer that on with paid ads, for example, what we see is that the kind of the compound interest of that sort of organic, authentic showing up, right, for our audiences in complementing all of these other strategies that are also going, everything becomes stronger. So for them, we were able to build out this beautiful pipeline, and the LinkedIn ads that we were running, which was part of the strategy, the results were tremendously improved by this added action of sort of showing up more authentically, showing the more personal side of the business.
So two things there. Number one, would have been about 8 years ago that there was a presenter doing a presentation and was talking about how to use pen and paper to tell
Mm,
your story to your prospect in a way that they would easily understand. And the guy
mhm,
showed an example of what he did uh, for Motorola, and
mhm,
because he told it in a story, that I can recite that today 8 years later. Because
mm,
stories are memorable, especially if there's a memorable story. Whereas if he had shared a marketing strategy, I'd be fumbling around trying to tell you that. He put the strategy in a story, and I think that carries a lot of weight, and it also connects with people. So telling your story in a way bonds you with other people, because that's what we long for. It's almost in our DNA, because the existence of human beings, the number one way by far was stories around the campfire, because we did not have the written word. And that's just what we love in movies and gossiping about movie stars. It's all about stories. So, A, love that. Number two, uh, LinkedIn as a platform, it doesn't matter how much you spend on ad campaign, is what results you get. So a lot of people shy away from LinkedIn because they think it's a lot more expensive than some of the other avenues out there. So uh, share with our audience your thoughts about LinkedIn advertising, and what's a good way to use it to get the ROI that you need.
Okay. I'm going to answer that in 1 second, because I want to double click on what you had just said about stories, because I want to talk about stories on two levels, right? Stories are incredibly important for content, right?
Mm.
That's what's going to connect our audience and make those messaging more memorable. Um, but another place that we need to develop a really good story is on the brand level as well. So
Mm.
not just in the day-to-day content that we share, but developing sort of your brand story. And when you're looking to develop your brand story, you want to, and this is a methodology that was developed by Donald Miller, which is the hero, the brand hero.
Right.
But and I love teaching this strategy, because when you build your brand around your customer, your prospect as the hero, and you actually truly build a story, you make up the story of your prospect as the hero of the story, and your product or your service
So,
as really the solution to their core problem. Yeah.
Victoria, can you give us an example, a client story of what their brand was? And when you added that story as the customer as a hero, it'll really ground what you're teaching us in a way that people go, oh, I get
Okay.
what she's talking about.
Well, I would love to use you as an example,
Oh,
because I
excellent.
think you would know how to explain this more intimately than I could, and I think it'll hit home for your audience. So, I mean, you obviously are a coach, and there's a lot of interesting um, methodologies that you use, and there's a
Hmm.
unique flavor that you bring to your coaching practice. So, let's talk about your who you serve, right? And when you are thinking about the people that you serve and the people that you have served best, what are some of what is the state, right? Because when we're talking about the story, the story is really the transformation, right?
Yeah.
And this story of transformation is so captivating to human beings, right? It is kind of the basis of all of these great hero journeys,
Joseph Campbell, The
wars.
Hero's Journey.
Right, right. But it's, from all of the greatest movies that we love for years to come,
Mm.
it's really is essentially the same, follows the same storyline of this hero's journey. But us as brands, as product or services, we are giving that story to our prospects, our clients, our customers.
So
And
I'll
so,
tell you a story. So I'll tell
yeah.
you a hero's journey. So Jake is a realtor who's doing well, but not great. And
Yeah.
anytime he goes into a listing appointment, he takes his team leader with him, because in his mind, in his heart, he's got a belief that I'm too young for this business. He's 21 years old. No one's going to take me seriously. And so we discover what that belief is. Uh, I, I use neuro linguistic programming and applied neuroscience. I end up noticing that there's a belief blocking him. We change the belief. And a month later, when he does his testimonial, he says, that thought that I'm too young has not entered my head for the entire month. And by the way, my average listing is about $600,000, where I would take my team leader. I just closed a $3.5 million listing without taking him there. I just went there and did it. And that's what everyone needs, is to figure out, what's our potential. And oftentimes we know how to get there, but something blocks us.
Yeah.
And that's what we do for people, is to figure out what that unconscious block is, remove it, so they get to step into the person they were always meant to be.
Right. So this is a beautiful example. And you kind of think of the beginning of the stories like, once upon a time, there was so and so who was feeling really was not feeling confident, right?
Yes.
About, and had beliefs that all of these reasons why they couldn't be successful. And this person knew that there was something holding them back, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it, right? And and so in comes, Coach Mar as the guide,
Ta-da!
right? To kind of say, all right, well, you're facing this problem. So, me as your guide, I'm going to present you with the path, the roadmap, right? Which is equivalent to, Yoda in Star Wars, or
Yep.
any of these great guides that we can kind of call to. But so when we have this journey in our minds, right, we know the problem, we're the guy that presents with the solutions, and we sort of sell and have our prospects dream about that transformation, where you were here feeling unsure and not confident and not sort of reaching the monetary goals that you have, to when you follow this map, this beautiful proven roadmap that you have developed, that here is the transformation, right? That you feel confident that you're making more money than ever. And it's even more beautiful when we do that in testimonials, right? Because then our prospective clients and customers can see that with real, proof to back it up. But when we have this story, this basic story, we also want to create sort of sub-stories
Right.
that can really showcase and bring home all of these points, all of these stages. So when you build out this hero's journey for your brand, when you're creating this content strategy, which, by the way, when we build content strategies for marketing, we want to do it in a strategic way where we are consciously moving our audience through this buying process, where they're aware of their problem, right? They're aware of the solutions for their problem, and ultimately choose us, right? So content that's going to help our prospects make decisions. But in all of those stages, right? Problem aware, solution aware, right? And then making that decision to actually decide to take action. We need to be thinking, well, what are all of the stories that we can develop within those content buckets that are going to help to burn into the brains of our prospect, to make that connection, right? And it's in such a noisy space, and I love that you brought this up, is because in such a noisy space of social media, where we're inundated with so many messages, if we really put on this lens of thinking of everything that we create and all of the copy we create for our website and for our socials and for our email newsletters and all this stuff, with this idea of building story, we're going to inevitably have more success, because we will be sort of living in a deeper place inside the minds of our prospects, right? Because those stories take hold. Absolutely. I don't know if I answered your question, though. I think we went.
So let's go back to the LinkedIn strategy. So you've got this story brand, and how do you connect it to the LinkedIn advertising to get really good ROI?
Okay, so let's talk more deeply about advertising on LinkedIn. So advertising on LinkedIn is without a doubt more expensive than the other platforms, without a doubt. And in my experience, could be upwards of double for leads and double or triple to acquire clients. So if you're thinking about advertising on LinkedIn, I would suggest that anyone advertising on LinkedIn, their business is a higher ticket offer, because those clients are going to be higher to acquire. And so in order to maintain that ROI, of course, we're going to want them to be more valuable clients in terms of the value of revenue that they bring into the business. That said, though, is that LinkedIn, while it is more expensive, the leads that you get from LinkedIn typically are much higher quality.
Right.
Because people are in a different headspace. Okay. And so if you're thinking about advertising for LinkedIn and you haven't advertised anywhere before, I'm going to tell you, I'll give you a little bit of a guide on how to be structuring your ads. So when you're first starting with ads, one of the smartest things that you could do is really optimize your ads for leads. Okay. So lead ads would look like advertising any lead magnets or any kind of like free gifts or something that you can give to your prospective clients in exchange for their email address. Because, and when we're talking about ads, we always talk about ads as bottom, middle, and top of the funnel.
Right.
Right. And each stage of advertising has a different function. So obviously your top of the funnel ad. So at the very top, we're really looking for a brand new audience. We call that typically in marketing cold audiences. They don't really have a lot of context of who we are and what we do. And we're showing these ads to anyone that kind of fits the bill when it comes to our prospective client, right? And we're just trying to just brand awareness. Tell people what we do. And when you're first starting out, that's not usually a very good strategy because it can be very expensive, right? And you're not really, you're in these types of ads, you're just kind of like showing people who you are and what you do. It's not a huge call to action there, right?
Right.
Then we have middle of the funnel ads, which are more bringing in those leads. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in 1 second. And then our bottom of the funnel is really where we're asking for that conversion, right? Either call or make a sale. And as you probably could guess, running bottom of the funnel ads to an audience that doesn't know much about you would be very difficult to convert them, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we start with this middle of the funnel where we have one job only, which is to get email addresses into our email list so we can build that like, know, and trust factor through that nurture phase that I mentioned before. Because what you want to do is really have people get to know you. And in this middle of the funnel, we hope that these folks are following us on social media, but not necessarily will be following you, all of them. But if they are following you on social media and in conjunction getting emails from you, right? Because in that lead magnet middle of the funnel ad, we're getting their email address in exchange for something of value. And the real joy for us as marketers and business owners with having that email address is it gives us a license to email these folks and really have them get to know you and you to get to know them, right? Through email marketing. And so when we have this sort of omni-channel presence going, which we call it, which means that you have, emails going, and then you've got someone following you on social media. So they're seeing your organic social posts, and then they're also seeing your advertisements. Then we get to develop this sort of cosmic universe of your brand, all with the same job, which is having your prospective client or customer make the link and the connection between what their problem is that they have, and the solution that you provide, right? And so if we go back to that bottom, middle, and top of the funnel, what we can do once we've built up enough momentum with that middle of the funnel ad and we're getting those email addresses, well, then we can serve bottom of the funnel ads, those more kind of call to action, book a call, just get to the sales page. We can retarget all of the folks that have seen that lead magnet. So we know that they have good context about who we are, what we do, how we serve. And so by the time they see that bottom of the funnel ad, they're way more likely to take action. So that is how I advise structuring those ads, but always start with that middle of the funnel and making sure that our lead magnet converts, that it really adds value, that it really connects with the right people that we want to connect with.
Brilliant. So how do you balance this ad strategy and in-mail messages? Can they work together? Can you use one as effectively? Thoughts on that, Victoria?
Okay. So the way that you're going to structure the email marketing is very specific when you're running ads and when you're really trying to reach people, new prospects on social media. So when your objective is to get more leads, right? Meaning more email addresses, you're going to want to put through advertisement or even through organic. Well, you should absolutely through organic social posts as well. So connection from your profile or on organic content that you share always leads as well to these lead magnets, right? You want to always be offering something in exchange for that email address. And once that person enters their email address into a landing page to get that thing, whatever it is, and by the way, if you have a product-based business, this could simply be a discount or free shipping. But for the first moment that person gets into your email list, you're going to want to send them on a very specific journey. You're going to want to first deliver whatever it is that you promised, which is the discount code or the free resource that you shared. And that's going to be pretty transactional, right? You don't want too much fluff on that. People just want to get the thing that they want. But after that thing is delivered that you promised, you're going to want to send them into what we call in marketing an ascension campaign, meaning we're going to want to take the next 3, 5, 10, 12 emails And we're going to create a funnel that's going to introduce the brand new person that got into your email address, into your email list. We're going to want to introduce them over a series of emails of who you are, what your company is, what you do, how you serve, right? And in that ascension campaign, you could be dripping out a couple emails and you're going to explain some certain aspects of your product or your service, and you're going to educate, you're going to give value, you're going to showcase your expertise, all of that stuff, and really build that relationship. And at the end of that drip campaign, I always think it's really smart to sort of remind people how they can work with you or how they can purchase with you, right? But the initial first couple emails, we definitely don't want to inundate people with sales messages. We want to warm them up or whatever. And then at the end of that sequence, which again, I recommend anywhere between 5 to 12 emails, really depends on how you want to organize it. But then towards the end, we just remind people how to buy. So if they're kind of warmed up and they can purchase with you. And alternatively, and this is really a personal choice, when you deliver that first thing, you could give a sales message immediately, like the first thing, and then bring them on that ascension campaign and then kind of share with them or remind them again of how you can serve them. So there's kind of two ways to approach it, because sometimes, depending on what your lead magnet is, it could be the ripe moment to upsell someone into your product or service because they're in that moment where they want the solution. But again, not too strong. We don't want to send them on dozens of sales emails. They're just going to get annoyed. So we want to find that balance. Then once they exit that initial sort of email sequence, then you're going to move them into a long-term nurture strategy, which could look like if you share a weekly email, which I absolutely recommend, or if you're a product-based service, you maybe send several emails a week. But you're going to want to put them into sort of your regular nurture cadence, which is going to be sort of contacting them in a regular way, just adding value. And that's sort of how your ads and your emails work together. And also, when you're running any campaigns throughout the years or promotions as well, you want your ads to be matching promotional communication that you're putting through your email list as well. And that causes that layering effect that we chatted about earlier.
Brilliant. So one of your areas of focus is very much empowering women owners to reach their potential in their businesses. What would be the two most important pieces of advice that you'd give women that are listening right now that have companies that would allow them to do better in their companies?
Okay. So when we'll speak of marketing, because that's my area of focus. So when it comes to marketing as a founder, there's one huge block, I think, that is being perpetuated through a lot of the digital marketers out there in website, in social media world. And it's this idea that, and this is especially targeted to women, is that we need to sort of do everything ourselves when it comes to marketing. We kind of need to create the content. We need to be doing copywriting. We need to understand, ads. We need to maybe even learn how to run ads ourselves, all this stuff. And I see tons of women that are truly doing everything themselves. But over my 15 plus years as a fractional marketing director and a fractional chief marketing officer, which is a huge part of my experience, I worked with many, many, many men. And this is one of the key differences that I've seen between male and female leaders as entrepreneurs. And many of the men that I've dealt with wouldn't even sort of dream of this idea that they had to learn the skill or acquire the skill themselves, right? And I think a lot of that plays into the confidence that we talked about when we kind of kicked off the show, where women, we tend to come, and this is very subconscious in us, and you can help us kind of erase those non-serving us subconscious thoughts. But we sort of believe that we need to know everything about something before we can, to do it well or to succeed or before we can get someone to help us with it. And this belief is a limiting belief that absolutely holds us back. So when it comes to marketing, we need to be putting on this marketing leadership hat. And this is really what I help women to achieve, where we have to understand the basics, the really important basic frameworks of how to build a brand that converts, how to build a marketing growth strategy. We have to really understand how that works. We need to know enough to be dangerous. But that absolutely does not mean we need to be executing all of the pieces of that marketing growth strategy ourselves and kind of running ourselves ragged. So we need to understand our brand communication strategy in my methodology. We need to understand our marketing growth strategy, but then we need to understand our team structure. And by the way, it does not matter if you have one person on your team or you have 20 people on your team. You have to think of your marketing effort as a marketing department with clear tasks for each person to do, clear key performance indicators or KPIs for them to be held accountable to. Even if it's just yourself as a solopreneur, you need to lead yourself in this way. It's just so important to be putting that hat on to organize kind of the execution. So it's the brand, the marketing growth strategy, the team strategy, right? How do we build the team? And then last, we need to really step into the role of leader for our marketing, for our business. And that really looks like, I need to understand what success looks like.
Right.
And then a lot of times that means doing some research on, what are the benchmarks for conversion rates to landing page? What are some benchmarks for social media follower growth for people in my industry that I can kind of benchmark myself to? So you understand how to set realistic goals, and you can diagnose from the data what's working and what's not working. And then you can kind of lean into getting better advice or help or a consultant or finding a coach or whatever in that specific thing to help improve and your team to improve the metrics in that particular part of your marketing strategy. So thinking a little bit higher level.
Brilliant. Victoria, thank you so much for being on the show. Learned a lot. And if you are looking for someone to help you grow your business, Victoria is your person.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. This was a great conversation.